Hello everybody, and welcome to our second episode of COVID DIY. And this time we're going to learn how you can make your own fresh supply of microgreens and sprouts right in your own kitchen. And we are joined today by Eddie Childs, who has been doing a lot of experimentation with microgreens in the last while, as well as Sue Whitaker, who rejoins us. She was last on our show doing a mask making demonstration, but she is a person of many, many talents, and so she is also doing sprouting in jars, and she's going to show you how she does that as well. And so I'm just going to remind everybody, in case you've only just joined us, we're recording this webinar, so you'll be able to check it out later and share it with your friends. We're putting everybody on mute in this call just to keep down the background noise. But if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, the best way is to either pose your question in the chat, which I'm going to be taking a look at every once in a while to read out questions as they come, or you can indicate that you have a question and we can bring you off mute to ask it. I'm just going to send something in the chat right now so that it will cause your chat button to light up in orange, or you might have a more ... button depending on your device that then leads you to the chat. That should also be flashing orange because I just said hello in the group chat, and that will help you find that window so that you can open it up and type anything you want into it. Can you please maybe let's just make sure everybody's found the chat by just saying hello. Just type in the word hello, and I see a few people already have. Hi, y'all, from Barbara. Yeah, Marilyn. Great. Sue. We've got Henry, Philip. Awesome. Petal, Monica, Lori. Hey, hello to you all. Looks like everybody's a Zoom Pro by now. So I'm going to turn it right over to Eddie Childs, and Eddie, he's just adjusting his camera right now. He's got a really cool 2-camera setup so that you can actually not just see his face, but you can look down below and see what he's doing with the microgreens. So over to you, Eddie.
All right, thank you very much, Jordan. I'm glad to see people out to take this in today, and hopefully there's a good number of people who are watching this recorded as well and can sort of pick up some of these skills that we're going over. So as was said, we're going to be sort of going through 2 slightly different methods of growing your own microgreens today. First, I'm going to be demonstrating how to grow your own microgreens using supplies from a local business to Summerside PEI, the Micro Farmers. And they have sort of grow kits, and everything's pre-cut and very easy to get started on. So I'm going to be showing you that method. And then later on, Sue's going to show you the more DIY upstart method of doing it in some mason jars and other such things. So without wasting any more time, I got into microgrowing about 4 months ago, again, through my friend who owns this local business. Yeah, from there, I've just sort of taken up the hobby and gotten carried away with it. I apologize for the bright light behind me, the window. There's not much I can do about that, I'm afraid, but put lights in front of me and another camera above me. So I really like it as a hobby. It's nice to have fresh ingredients, fresh micro vegetables that you can use in meals, quick meals. It's a relaxing, sort of healthy practice, I find, as well. I spend a few minutes every day tending to them and harvesting them and all of that sort of thing. So I found it to be a really nice hobby to have. So the whole thing, it takes 2 weeks to grow your own microgreens. And I'm now going to switch and make sure. So everyone should be seeing the top-down camera. I think that's what's easiest. There might be a little bit of a tape delay there. So again, it takes 2 weeks. We're going to go through the process of sowing your seeds to watering them and finally harvesting them. All right, so as I get myself together here, we'll start with some of the equipment. So this is what I use to grow my microgreens. You see here, there's a white tray. Just work with me here. So just a simple plastic tray. And with that, so instead of using a soil as a growing medium or something like that, this is a fibrous mat made of hemp, as I understand. And this has been working very well for me over the past few months as I've gotten started. So sowing the seeds, very simple. You make sure you want to make sure you have a nice clean tray. You know, obviously you reuse these trays between batches of microgreens. So in between batches, it's important that you give it a good soapy wash. I find the dishwasher doesn't quite do it, so you have to hand wash the trays. It's probably the most labor intensive part of the whole thing. So you put your grow mat in, and then decide what you want to grow. So I've got a few different varieties of seeds here. And again, all of these are supplied by the same company for me. So there's various seed suppliers on the island that you can go through. This is the one that works best for me. So those were sunflower seeds. I've got peas here, and I'll show you how those grow out shortly. But I think for this one, we're going to do, this is a blend of seeds called tangy choy. As you can see, it's got bok choy, turnip, mixed radish, clover. So a variety of different seeds in this bag. I'm just going to get a couple of little tools together. I should say, I've touched on the growing medium and the seeds, but every bit as important, of course, is the water and light. So for water, I just use tap water, which has been first put through a Brita filter. And after that, I'll pour it into this glass and I'll leave it on the windowsill for about 24 hours before I use it. And the reasoning there is not only does it let the water come to room temperature by the time you're going to use it, sometimes with these delicate seeds and delicate plants, if you pour water that's quite cold from the tap or quite hot from the tap, it could kill them. So best practice is to use water that you've left out overnight, let all the chlorine get out, let the temperature equalize. Okay, so again, feel free as we move along, put any questions into the chat. I'm keeping an eye on it, and so is Jordan, who's going to help me out if I miss anything, but it doesn't look like it's moving too quickly right now. All right, so first we're going to measure our seeds. You don't want to oversow your tray. You don't want to have way too many seeds. And then you also want to maximize your yield and production. So you want to have just the right amount for what you're working with. And today, these seeds are measured 1 1/4 tablespoon of these seeds fit perfectly into this one tray and this one growing mat. So I'm just going to take my first teaspoon, and I've learned using a nice light little paper Dixie cup is a good way to go about this for a couple of reasons. When you go to spread the seeds out into the growing tray, it just comes out nice and evenly. You can control it easily enough so that you're not accidentally pouring too much seed into one half and you don't have enough to properly sow the second half. Good tip. All right, so now that we've got our seeds ready, so again, this is a measured amount of those tangy choy seeds. We're going to add, and again, with these kits, it's all very made to measure. So this water that I'm going to use, it's very even. I just use 1/2 cup of water for this grow mat. So I'm just going to go ahead and I've got a 1/4 cup measure here. So I'm going to add my distilled temperature water, and there we go. And again, you know, the instructions are pretty clear with this kit that I use, but it's never an exact science. You know, sometimes if I'm growing peas, and I'll probably I might sow one more tray of those before I'm done here. When I'm growing peas, I might add a little bit more water, just because they're a bit bigger, and once they have sprouted, tend to suck up quite a bit when compared to these little guys. So as I was talking there, I was just patting down the mat. So I'm just making sure that the water is nice and absorbed. And what you're looking for, at least with these kits and with this growing medium, is you want it to just sort of be at the top, the water line to just be over the top of this grow mat. So you want a tiny little film of water at the top. You do have to be a bit careful with that once you go to move the tray. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my Dixie cup full of seeds and evenly spread it. And again, it's kind of nice to just take your time and get it even. So you're just slowly tapping out the seeds onto the grow mat. And well, it doesn't get any less complicated than this. And even it out a bit. I don't, but I know some people, depending on the seed that they're using, and again, particularly with larger seeds, they sometimes just like to give them a little bit of a press down into the mat, make sure they're all coated in that little film of water that you want to have on the top. But you don't need to do that. All right, so I'm going to stand up here and try and get you here. Now, as you go to move these trays, again, with that little film, you can see if I tilt it, quite a lot of the seeds are prone to sloshing around. So at this point, you just want to be careful as you're moving it, that you don't completely destroy the nice, even work you've done. Anyway, I'm not going to be too fussed about this one, truth be told. So now that that is sowed, we'll leave it here and slosh it around some more. Now that that's ready to go, you're into the 2-week growing process. And let me just, there we go. I think I canceled that spotlight. Anyway, once you've sowed the tray, you're into the 2-week growing process. So week 1, you're going to take this tray and you're going to put it in a warm and dark area to germinate. So a cupboard drawer is good, or just any cupboard. It's been pointed out to me, if you actually put it in a drawer, you want to be mindful of when you pull the drawer out, it can make some of that sloshing happen. So if you're germinating your seeds in a drawer, you just want to be cautious about the movement when you go to access them. Anyway, a warm, dark space. I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see, but just over my shoulder here, I have a grow box. And again, I might, spot, there we go. All right, so just over my shoulder, I've got this grow box, and I'll get the light so you can see. Got all my greens lifted out of there at the moment, except for these guys. They're almost all harvested. So I'm gonna take my tray, I'm gonna put it down here. This is my little germinating cubby. Pardon me, I'll get these out. And I'm going to leave my newly sowed tray of seeds in here for a week, 7 days, checking back on them every couple of days to make sure that they're sprouting. And just sort of, you know, you got to talk to your plants, right? So just check on them, make sure that they have enough water, that sort of thing. In the first week, while you're germinating in that warm, dark area, you can add a little bit of water as needed if you think the mat is looking especially dry. Again, that's just something you get used to. It's in that territory of not an exact science. You get used to what to add. You'll experience what it looks like to add too much, and all of those things. So now that those seeds are away, this here is an example, and I'll swap cameras now. This is an example of what it should look like in about 7 days time. So these are the mixed tangy seeds. I'm going to stand up and see if I can get that right. All right, and this is what you get after a week. So now that these have been germinating for 7 days, they're nice and tall. They're really desperate for some light and some water. Now comes the second week of growing, and for that, they want to go up into the light, of course. So now that they've had 7 days in the dark, just to answer the question, yeah. So this tray that I just demonstrated, this has spent 7 days in that dark tray, and I'll show you here as well another example. I might sow some peas in a minute. These are peas, and these have been sown 7 days ago, and at best they're probably about 4 inches high. And these are mostly ready to go into the light as well. It's been 7 days, but I might just give them one more day under the territory of not an exact science, because I want them to get a little bit taller in the dark before I put them into the light. All right, so sorry, I'm all over the place here. This tray is now in week 2, so its second week is going to be spent in the light. They grow perfectly well on a nice sunny windowsill. Really, you don't need any additional lighting or anything like that. I have happened to ramp up my hobby to the point where I do have a modest little growing bulb, and if anyone's interested on the details of that bulb, I can take it off and share that on the call. But it's really nothing special, just a $15 grow bulb, and that can hold. It does 6 trays. So quarter cup
Actually,
every
Eddie,
day.
just a question, sorry, about your grow box.
Certainly, yeah.
Did you make that grow box yourself?
I didn't actually. It was hand assembled. All credit where it's due to Mr. Alan Bridle. Again, the gentleman, he owns this microgreen company, so he assembled that as he's sort of. Well, I won't speak for him, but he was interested in seeing what this level of growing could look like, I suppose. So I'm sort of demoing, living with this level of microgreen and all of that. So Alan Bridle built this wonderful box for me. It's so well thought out, and it fits everything perfectly. I'm such a fan, and I eat these greens pretty well every day in a salad or a sandwich, something like that. Anyway,
Yeah,
thank you.
that's really cool.
Yeah,
I saw Sue smiling because I think she's thinking she can get her husband to build one of those.
I think you can. I think you can. I'll take the camera down in a minute, and I can show you a little closer that grow box. It's very simple frame and materials.
Awesome.
So in the second week, every single day you want to add a quarter cup of water. So again, when you go to germinate on day 1, you're adding half a cup, and you just leave it at that half a cup for the whole of the first week. And then it's in the second week when you start watering it on a daily basis. So this is already, it's had 7 days in the dark. It's looking a little bit dry. I could have maybe added some early water yesterday, but nevertheless, I'm going to add my quarter cup. And when you're adding it, I've sown this tray quite deliberately, and I'll show it on the other camera. So there's a nice gap between the edge and where the plants start, and that's just so I have a bit of room to pour it in. I have lazily before poured a quarter cup of water pretty well on the top of my greens, and they all got weighed down by water and died very quickly. So do add your water carefully. And then that's done. That's in the light, and I'll add water to that every day, and it will be ready to eat in 7 days. So just for a final comparison, this is this is what the 2 weeks will look like. So we've seen this. I'm not going to raise this to the camera again. So you germinate. 1 week later, you take it out, put it in the sun, and then 1 week after that, in fairness, these are radishes and only radishes, so it's a little bit of a different product, but they grow at pretty well the same pace. So that is what you can expect with a couple of weeks there. And then again, the peas, I don't have a tray of peas sown. I think I'm going to let that slide. The process is no different. These are the peas after 1 week of germinating. And these peas are probably about 10 days old. So these have been in the light now for just a few days, and they're getting quite tall. I'm not sure which camera is best to see it there, but between the two, you should be able to get a sense.
So Eddie, is there
Yeah.
only about a 3-day difference between the first and second tray there of peas?
Yeah, approximately 3,
Wow.
maybe 4. The peas really shoot up very quickly. Before these are fully done, these might double in height. So I would expect these to get up to about here.
Oh my gosh.
They reach the light in the grow box. I think what I'll do here, Jordan, is I'll very quickly give just a look at this grow box I have, and then I think I can hand it over to Sue to keep going here. So
Great. And we've got another question here. Monica's wondering what the size of your growing container is. Do you know the dimensions approximately, or does it matter?
Yeah, approximately. It's not very big. It's probably I don't know. I figure a 4-inch by 8-inch growing tray, and the trays or the mats are about the same as well.
Right.
So yeah, again, oh, I've lost my other camera. I was moving that. So yeah, I've just got a bag of growing mats here. These are 300 grams. That's the standard size. I do also have some 500 gram mats. So all that is to say is you can sort of continue on in the hobby. Like, even though I'm getting started with these 300 gram grow mats, which come standard with the kits, but now I've moved on to trying some more experimental 500 gram mats and trying to see if the yield is any greater than the 300 gram. All right, so I'll turn around and okay, so sorry about this. Hope nobody gets nauseous. So this is my grow box, again, made by Mr. Alan Bridle. It's got a very, simple setup. I'll show you the light after if anyone's interested in knowing the specifications. But this is, it's a wood frame, and then it's just, you can see here the insert. It's just, a board, like a plexi board. I don't know what you'd call it. It's nothing simple. Or nothing.
Looks almost like you could use like it's like coroplast.
Yeah, any old science fair projects or
Green
something like
party
that,
sign.
you could cut them up.
Oh,
And then you
I'm
put
just
it in.
gonna double check here. Can other people see the screen, like the camera that Eddie is? Because I've pinned it on my end, but I'm not sure if that worked for everybody.
Oh, all
Okay,
right.
I guess no other people weren't seeing it. So yeah, now we should be good.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm very sorry for that. So yes, this is it here. As you can see, this tray is very nearly done. So I've just got a few more left. I'll trim those up with scissors on my supper, and then the whole tray at the end, you just take it out and compost it just like that. So again, very sort of straightforward, and you clean it after and go. So back to this grow box. The light clip is very simple, just like that, hangs on. It's a wood frame, and it's just got some side piece here. Again, you could get this at the Dollarama. Really, you just want to get something that is good at sort of stopping light, I guess. As you can see, I have an open back, and that's because I've got this wonderful sunny window. I can turn the light off, midday, and just let the natural sunlight come in. And again, down here, this is where I germinate. As you can see, I've got one other tray, which you didn't see. These are some sweet greens. So that's a broccoli and kale mix. I've got this, just gives me my humidity and temperature. You certainly don't need one of these. I never check it. It's just sort of if you want to have any sort of scientific tracking of your growing. If you want to measure, oh, well, I got, 500 grams of yield from this tray, but only 450 from the last one. So you certainly don't need it. I notice on the inside of this board is blackened a bit. And again, that's because you want to do what you can to keep the light out of this area as the seeds germinate. So this is just held on by Velcro and a very simple screw handle. Yeah, use it. I've got a couple of other really quick projects too. Trying to regrow some celery, and this has actually been quite successful. There's a lot of leaves starting on the inside, so these will be good salad additions. And trying romaine lettuce as well. I don't know if that's going to work, but I've got some new growth. But I certainly never would have bothered to start any of that if I hadn't got started on the microgreens themselves. And it's a good way to branch out into other things. I'm now very keen on getting started with an outdoor garden this summer, even if we weren't going through the crisis that we are currently going through. I would still be sort of on that gardening track. So anyway,
Great.
I think that's it. That's all I have.
Well, yeah, thanks so much, Eddie. We've got a few other questions that have come in here. First, I'm going to go to one that Henry asked earlier about if you have any pointers on harvesting of the microgreens. So you mentioned that you harvest with scissors. Is there anything else you'd say about that? Is there like a date by which you must harvest it and put it in a bag or something?
That's a very good question. So, I did get rid of my my second camera, so I'll just show from here. So yeah, again, like in terms of harvesting, you can see about the level of which I've harvested. You don't have to worry too much about it. But in terms of time, so this tray you see here would have had its first week germinating, its second week growing, and then you're in week 3 and you've got a fully grown tray of greens. So at the beginning of that third week, I'd say they probably last 2 weeks. They keep growing and this sort of thing, but depending on which seeds, they might only last for a week, another week. So from when you put the seeds in the tray to when you take all of them out, between 3 and 4 weeks is the time span. You can extend the life of those greens by taking this tray. Again, this tray is 3.5 weeks old. It's going to have to go soon. I could put this into the fridge just like so and probably get an extra week out of it, because again, it goes into a refrigerated stasis and sort of stops developing or deteriorating. So yeah, that's what it is. You probably want to try and eat them certainly within 2 weeks after growing, probably within 1 week. If you haven't eaten them within that 1 week, consider putting them into the fridge and they'll last longer.
Yeah, I know when I buy sprouts from the farmer's market, they can last a good 2 weeks, sometimes in a bag, no problem.
Yep. And I just one other point there. If you do harvest them, say you harvest too many and you want to store them, they're best wrapped in paper towel and then bagged and put in the fridge. So I tend to harvest mine. I only harvest what I'm going to eat in that meal in the immediate next 10 minutes. But yeah, certainly if you over harvest, then yeah, wrap them in paper towel and then in plastic before being put into the fridge, or reusable containers, whichever works, but you best to use that paper towel.
Great. And we've got a question from Monica. She was asking if you could repeat the contact name of the supplier of the grow kits that you use.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the Micro Farmers. So let me just
find their website.
Yeah, so it's the microfarmers.ca. Will get you there, or a simple Google search.
The microfarmers.ca.
So I'll just put a link here into.
Oh yeah, great. Thank you.
And from there, they have kits available. They also are available on Amazon, and I think that's where they are actually sold from. So it might be if you go to buy one from the website, it will redirect you to Amazon. But either way, I would encourage anyone who's interested to go to the Contact Us section of their website. I know Alan personally, and he's very good to talk to interested people about their new microgreen project. So yeah, I'm sure you could access that and contact the business owner himself. He'd be happy to help you.
Yeah, I know. I ran into him in Sobeys on Allen Street in Charlottetown the other day, and so I know he sells them there as well,
Mm-hmm.
and a few other places. So that's great. And then, oh, I'll just mention here that Marilyn mentioned that she tried regrowing romaine, like you're
Oh,
doing,
right.
and she says after 4 weeks she had enough for garnish.
Oh, that's
so,
fantastic.
so
That's
I
about
guess
the
it's
pace I'm at with celery. So 4 weeks. All right.
well, it depends on how much you want. It sounds like garnish might not be a whole lot, but
Yeah. Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that's all the questions here, and you've answered all the questions that popped into my head during this time as well. So thanks so much for that.
Just really quickly, I see coming in. What did I put the romaine in? So just a little mason jar with the same temperature, averaged water, the same distilled water that I have on hand. So you just kind of cut the end off the romaine and drop it in water. And this has been, well, very little growth, but this is about a week and a half maybe. But yeah, there's all sorts of stuff you can regrow. Green onions I see in the chat. Um, it's a good thing to look into. You can even sprout almonds. I think that's one that surprises
Mm.
people. Is almonds will sprout if you give them the water. Anyway, with that, I'll cut myself off. Thank you very much for listening, and throw it back to Jordan.
Oh, thank you, Eddie, and that's really awesome with the whole idea of regrowing your vegetables. I've definitely seen vegetables kind of do that over time in my fridge, but I haven't consciously made that effort. And it's kind of like it should be the next R, and reduce, recycle, regrow. So that's fantastic to know about. So I'm going to turn it over to Sue Whitaker, and she's going to show us another way of creating microgreens or sprouting using a mason jar. So over to
Okay,
you,
well,
Sue.
thanks, Jordan. And thanks, Eddie. That was great. I've been sprouting for years and years, but I've learned a couple new things. I used to be in the country with a well, so I didn't ever have to worry about chlorine in my water, but now I can see it would be best to leave the water for a little while so the chlorine can come out of it. And I didn't know that there was a local source for seeds. So I'll talk about my source, but that's good to know. So mine is much, much more low tech. Mine involves something like a pickle jar or maybe a peanut butter jar, something like that, something very simple, clear. And all I do is I take sprouting seeds, and I get them from a company called Mums. So Mums sprouting seeds. I don't know if that's backwards or not, Jordan.
No, it looks good.
Okay, so Mums sprouting seeds. And you can get different kinds. So this is called Ancient Eastern Blend. And I've got one here called Sandwich Booster. But you can get alfalfa, or there's some garlic chives. They're delicious. Of course, taste of garlic and onions combined. So anyhow, all that you do is you take a couple tablespoons of these seeds.
Oh, and just a quick question: where do you buy the seeds? Do you
Yeah,
order them online, or?
Yeah, I buy them online. Now they're a little bit behind right now because everybody and their cousin has decided to grow sprouts with what's going on with COVID and being contained. But if you go to sprouting.com, and I've given Jordan a link. I don't know if you got it yet, Jordan. I just emailed it to you.
Oh, okay.
And they're organic and they're non-GMO. And I ordered these April 1st, and they came in just 2 or 3 days ago because they're so behind, but I think they're catching up now, so they shouldn't be that much longer. I've ordered it from them for years, and they're very reliable and good, but buying locally is good too. So, okay, so all you do is you take a couple, I don't have a camera like Eddie, so I'm gonna have to do a lot of this sort of folding up as I go. So a couple tablespoons, it really doesn't matter. There's nothing scientific. You just put them in the jar to start. I'm going to put probably 3 in a jar this size. And this is my sandwich booster. So just in a jar. And you take water and you soak the seeds. Oh, I forgot there was a net in the jar. It doesn't matter. So you would just soak the seeds. One sec. I should have taken that out first. And soak them, you rinse them first. So you put water in, pour it out after you put the net on, which I'll show you, and then just add more water and let it soak for 5 to 8 hours maybe. Once the seeds have soaked, then you have to pour the water out. So you would put on netting, and you can either use a piece of actual netting. It's something that I got from Mum's initially. It wasn't very expensive. So you put the netting on the top of the jar. You can see this. And just hold it on with an elastic, just like that. And then when you go to rinse the seeds, and after they've soaked for the very first time for 5 to 8 hours, you rinse them out. And I have this very high-tech pan that's your sink. And all you do is you just tip it like this and just gently pour the water out. And the seeds will get stopped by the netting. And you just sort of swish it so they're at the bottom of the jar when you're done. So hopefully you can see that. You pour the water out and you make sure they're sort of just along the bottom of the jar. And that's about it. Then you put this on your windowsill and you let it germinate just in the sun. I didn't even know anything about putting them in the dark first or anything like that. These are sprouts. I just put them straight on the windowsill. And within, it says 5 days, I find, depending on the weather and the amount of sun, but 5 days later, you might have microgreens. But twice a day, you add water and rinse the seeds. So that's only the very first time you soak them for 5 to 8 hours. After that, twice a day, you pour the water in, just like I did. Swish it around so everything's all rinsed and wet. Drain it out. Sort of flat in the jar, and then just leave it on your windowsill. So my high tech again will show you. Here's some ancient Eastern blend that's partway through growing. I don't know how well you can see that. Mm-hmm. And this is green lentils that I have. But again, I'm just started them. The problem was that when I said that I would help with this workshop, at that point my seeds hadn't come in from Mum's yet. And so I'm using very, very old seeds. So this one I actually put in on April 22nd, and by now it should easily be ready to eat, and it's not. What I did have, started already, is some actual microgreen seeds. So they're not sprouting seeds from Mum's, but this is sort of what they look like in the jar. So we've been eating these. And when you're ready to eat, you just take the netting off and just haul them out and throw them in your salad, or just eat them right from the jar.
What kinds of greens are those, Sue?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm not sure. They're ones that I got from Jordan McPhee. I don't know. They're good.
Okay. Part of the fun.
What's that?
It can be part of the fun, not entirely
exactly.
sure.
They look like that when they're initial seeds. They're that big. But like I say, these aren't ones that I would normally sprout. I was just out of sprouting, so I thought I'd try those, and they're delicious.
And Henry's wondering if do you cut them off at the root, or do you just eat the whole thing?
I eat the whole thing. Now those I did cut. I pull that little seed pod off. Again, they're not really designed to be sprouts. So in this case, that's kind of hard. But I'd eat the roots too. But I would just pull that off. But with the others, they're so small and the seed pods are so soft by the time you go to eat them, you can just take these and just put them right on your sandwich. So you can go high tech, and from the seed companies, you can get jars that are actually labeled sprouting jars, and they come with a little package with netting and an elastic, very, very fancy. Or you can take an old pair of nylons, you can cut the leg off after they're clean, and use an elastic from your drawer in a pickle jar, which is all that this is, and it does the exact same thing. And that's it, unless anyone has any questions.
Well, so Barbara here was noting that she said that she was reading that they sprout better or faster in the dark. And I'm wondering, because, you know, Eddie obviously puts his in the dark for the first 7 days. Why would it be different with sprouting in a jar? Or have you ever tried it in the dark before?
No, I haven't. I was saying that that's something I think I've learned from Eddie, and I'm interested to try it. I've never had any trouble sprouting them, and they get nice and green within 5 or 6 days just on the windowsill. But
So
maybe Eddie has something to add.
just to provide some logic as to why I darken my microgreens for the first week, I'll bring them out here as well. Basically, it just has to do with getting a higher yield. So when, and again, these are the greens, they've been germinating for 1 week, and we watered these and put them out into the light. And these are their counterparts, which are ready to eat. So when you leave them in the dark, they crave light. So because of that, they expend all their energy to shoot up as quickly as they can, to get closer to the light source and to be, you know, above everyone else, as it were, when there is light. So you're sort of starving the plants of light, and because of that, they're all racing as hard as they can to be the first one to reach it. So if the difference is you could let them germinate in the light, but they would maybe grow half the length, and then they would be able to move on to that next stage of development with the light. But you're just halting that next stage of plant development, and in stopping that, them putting out their first leaves, they end up getting taller and giving you a higher yield. So that's why I put them away into the dark. And while I've got the floor, I'll just say I do cut off the root, but that has more to do with me growing them in the medium, as opposed to just loose in a jar and pulling them out. So I don't eat the root. It depends. These are sunflowers, so I might just pinch them and leave, you know, a whole inch or more left behind on the plant, and just eat it like so. So I don't pull them out or anything. Anyway, that's me. That's it.
Okay, well,
great,
thanks, Eddie. That's interesting. I've never tried growing it in the dark. For me, growing sprouts has been sort of all about, for me, whatever's easiest. And wetting them, throwing them on a windowsill a couple times a day, just rinsing them, because they're usually behind my kitchen sink on the windowsill, is easy to remember to do. And then within a few days, hauling them out and putting them in a salad or on a sandwich or something. And
Yeah.
that's all I do. But I'm going to try that. It's going to be interesting to see the difference if I try one in the dark for a few days first. They take so few days to grow. If you just want little sprouts.
Yeah. And that's the best thing, is such a quick turnaround time. The whole project, as it were, is 2 or 3 weeks, and you're turning over and starting another batch.
Yeah. Or in this case, it might even be just 6 or 7 days or less. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'll have to try some jar sprouting as well. I've got some Eastern blend seeds as well, which my cat has been liking up until now, but I'll try sprouting them with the new technique.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple other questions here. Barbara was wondering if it matters how much water's left in the jar after you've rinsed the seeds.
Yes, in my experience has been, you want them damp, but you don't want them wet. So in the jar experience, you try and drain out as much as you can. And because you wet them twice a day, they don't dry out. Now, when you do go to put them in the fridge, like Eddie was saying, if you've sort of grown too many that you're not eating them as you go, they should be well drained in the fridge. And I would echo what he said. That's why the paper towel. What I've done sometimes too is if you get, sometimes you can get those clear plastic containers with a lid, something. You might put them in the container, put the paper towel on the top, put the lid on, and then flip it upside down. So any water that's there will drain into the paper towel and keep the dampness away from the sprouts. But they should be fairly well drained day to day. Yeah. You can see
And
these
that
are
sort
pretty
of
dry. Mhm.
that sort of segs into the other question that Carl had about that you leave the jar on its side usually, or
I do. Now the package says to tilt it. And when you look at the package, it's sort of tilted a bit like this, the drawing on the package. I'll see if I can show you. Very tiny. Did you see that drawing
oh
where it's
yeah,
sort
we
of
can
on
see
a
it a bit
tilt?
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's probably so there's maybe more room for it to grow or to make sure it's well drained. I've never done that. I've always just done it like this and just left it on the windowsill like this, and it just fills the jar. I usually use the big jar, so I just leave it like that. But I think if you did that, you'd be sure that it would be drained well.
Okay. And Carl had another question too. He said he once heard of a salmonella risk from sprouting and is wondering if either of you is able to speak to that. Is that a risk? Is there something you can do to avoid the risk, or if there is one? Or
I'm not
I,
aware of that, but I'm I'm
yeah,
not a doctor. I just play one on video.
I'm not specifically aware of that happening either. But a good point to add is, you know, growing microgreens very worth washing your microgreens before you eat them. It's just a good habit. But yeah, as far as salmonella risk, I wouldn't want to comment. I'd say I'd encourage you to do your own research. But I haven't encountered that happening.
And I've been doing this for years and years and years and years, and I haven't either. But that's not to say it's not a risk. So yeah.
okay. Well, thank you very much both for that. I'll just take this opportunity. I was so excited about this workshop coming up that I created my own jar. Oh, it's I'm
Oh,
gonna have
we
to
can't
turn
see
off.
it with
I'm
your
gonna have to turn off
background,
my
Jordan.
background. You're gonna have to see where I live. Let's see here.
While Jordan's doing that, I'll just say I do have some extras of these pickle jars. If anybody's interested in, they can contact me. I go through dill pickles like crazy, so and I hate to throw those nice jars out, so I have a bunch.
Here's my jar of
Ooh.
radish seeds. So I actually just used like a package of radish seeds that you'd buy like to plant in a garden.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I even forgot about the whole soaking for 8 hours. So I soaked them for a couple minutes, and then I've been rinsing them. But they're coming along really nicely. Like I can pretty much see difference like by the hour in
Yeah,
how they're growing. So that'll be exciting to see.
excellent.
They do grow
All right.
exceptionally quickly. You saw the peas earlier. They double their height in a week. They're really fun to watch.
I see Henry Dunsmore has another question here that yeah he asked about rinsing more than once. They recommend twice a day. Now they're very forgiving. I think Eddie will agree with this too. Extremely forgiving. If you forget, if you go away or whatever, and I mean they're also certainly when you buy this amount, they're sort of dirt cheap, and you've only invested 5 or 6 days. So if you
Yep.
forget and they do die, although honestly I haven't had that happen, they're very forgiving. Then you put some more in a jar.
Okay, well that's awesome. This is really fantastic, and there's lots of new ideas to try. So thank you very much to both Eddie and Sue for showing us this very useful skill, and good luck to all of you in your little micro gardens.
And thanks for organizing this, Jordan.
Thank you so much, Jordan.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And yeah, we'll get the recording. We'll get that up and send it out to all the participants so that you can review and can also share it with your friends.
And if you want to send that link to Mum Seeds if you're interested, and Eddie probably has a link to his.
Yeah, I did put the
Oh,
link in the chat there, but I'll make sure to include that along with the video and everything too.
okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very
Great.
much, everybody.
Bye.